Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. It's Russell with Ink and Paper Blog. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing very well on this lovely Tuesday afternoon. It is nice and chilly and cool here in Northern California. I get to wear a sweater if you're in the US, a jumper if you are in the UK. It has been nice to cuddle with the dogs under blankets and read, and I hope you guys are just enjoying some nice weather. If you are in Australia and having a heat wave, I apologize, or I say congratulations. I don't know, whichever works for you in that category. But it is that time of year here, and it is chilly, and I am loving it. I'm coming to you today with my November wrap-up, but before we get started with that, I do have to announce the winner of my giveaway from my Jessie, Chaffee, and Geoff Nicholson video. I know that video is really long, guys. It's like 50 minutes because I did the entire conversation that I had with them. But it's really worth hopping in and out of if you guys want to see them read from their own books or hear their inspiration. But at the beginning of that video, I said I was going to do a giveaway if you could recommend to me an author that you think needs to be better known. And I had some really interesting responses, and by luck of the draw, the winner of this giveaway is James Chatham. Now, James has his own YouTube channel, so I will link it down below. And hold on, I have his books here. I will link it down below. What's really cool about James is that he also reviews records or LPs that he purchases. I think that's what they're called. Not my thing, but he is very passionate about it and he really loves them. So if that is something you're interested in with books, he is great. He's also a great discusser of the novels that he reads, and he reads a bunch of different stuff. So I will link his channel down below. James, email me and I will mail you your copies signed of Florence and the Ecstasy and the Miranda, and I'll try to get them in the mail this weekend. So, I read 7 books in the month of November, which is really good considering 2 of them are 500 pages or so. I kind of participated in Tome Topple. So, I'm going to go through them really quick for you and hopefully put some of them on your TBR. The first one I read was Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, which is probably the most well-known of all of them, actually. This book doesn't need much description. This is the fictional account of Jeanette's growing up in a very religious family. She is adopted. Her mother and her are big members of the church. It's also about Jeanette coming to terms with her sexuality, how the church responds, how her mother responds, what Jeanette decides to do with her life once those responses become reality. The book is beautifully written. It's a fantastic story. I do think in my head it was built up to be a little bit grander than it was, but I really enjoyed it, and I'll definitely pick up some more Jeanette Winterson moving forward. So that's Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit. I do have a couple of books, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not sure how I'm going to describe that I really enjoyed, but they're odd. And the first one's going to be Fever Dreams by Samanta Schweblin. Now, Samanta Schweblin is an Argentinian writer, so this is actually translated from the Spanish by Megan McDowell. And this book is crazy. I don't know how else to tell you. This is the story of a woman, Amanda. She is dying in a hospital, having a conversation with a little boy named David. And it's sort of a discussion as David, whether or not he is even there really or a figment of her imagination, is having her come to terms with how she's wound up where she's at and the relationships in her family. It is about the poisoning that occurred because of pesticides, and it's about death, and it's about family, and it's about coming to terms with your life, and it is poetic and artistic and amazing and weird and difficult and worth every minute, but I don't know that it's a book that you can really talk about with any sort of coherence because it is so brilliantly confusing. I loved it, but it's a very hard book to talk about. But I would highly recommend you read Fever Dream by Samanta Schweblin. Okay? The next book is not so hard to talk about, and that is River of Teeth by Sarah Gailey. This is just a fun romp. Now, this book was inspired by the fact that in the United States, in the beginning of the 1900s, there was 2 issues. There was a meat shortage in the United States, and also in Louisiana, there was overgrowing in the marshlands where, I'm trying to remember what it is. It's some sort of plant. I cannot remember what it is. I'm sorry. And there was a member of Congress that recommended, this was an actual thing, a bill he put forward, that America bring hippos over from Africa and put them in Louisiana to eat this, and then we would also butcher them and they would become the meat source for America since there was a meat shortage. This was actually something that was proposed. Now, it didn't actually come to fruition, but this book hypothesizes what if it did. This is the story of some cowboys, I'm going to say cowboys, but they actually ride hippos, and they are hired because someone wants them to go into the territory where all of the renegade is not the right word, but there is a lot of, there are hippos that are trained and hippos that are farmed, and then there are also hippos that are wild, and they want to clear them out of an area. So this very unique group of people who ride very unique hippos, which is just fantastic, are sent in to do a job. It's got that cowboy and western explosion, guns. It's really inclusive. Our main character is bisexual. He has a relationship with a non-binary character named Hero. And Hero refers to themselves as they, so it's very very open-minded. Everyone's sort of inclusive, but it's got that intrigue of a good old Western story. Now, I know the second book came out, and I think I'm going to buy it in the next couple weeks because I really enjoyed it. This is for someone who just wants a fun romp of a book, and just wants to enjoy a really interesting story. The world building, it's set in the United States, but clearly there are hippos walking around. So, you know, it's kind of fun like that. I really, really liked River of Teeth by Sarah Gailey, and I highly recommend that you guys pick it up. The next book I read is The Accidental by Ali Smith, and I read this as a buddy read with Kendra Winchester over at Kendra Winchester. I will link her channel down below for you. Kendra is one half of the Reading Women with Autumn Privet. I will link their podcast below. If you don't listen to the Reading Women, you really should. They are fantastic. And I will tell you right now that Kendra Winchester put me to shame when it came to The Accidental, because she does so much research and really was telling me things about this book that were just phenomenal. But Ali Smith is a challenging writer, and you know, I said after I read Autumn I was worried that she was going to be all style, very little substance, and in a way she kind of is. But in a way it's totally okay because she's so brilliant as what she does. This is the story of a family, a mother, a stepfather, a son, and a daughter who go on vacation. And while they're on vacation, their lives are interrupted by a woman who basically sort of turns everything upside down. It is about the family, it's about who they are as people and reevaluating why they are the way they are and the preconceived notions that they feel about themselves. It is a story that is thought-provoking in that Ali Smith, better than any writer I have ever read in my entire life, can make a character about a theme. For example, the son is dealing with something that he is very, very guilty about. And he is really sort of a thesis about the idea of dealing with guilt, then deciding to do something completely different so guilt sort of goes away, but you can't get away from guilt. So does it come back? How does it wind up haunting you in the end? Each character sort of embodies sort of a thought, sort of an idea. The stepfather has sort of a toxic masculinity. It is so good, but I can't tell you Ali Smith does not do plot. The book doesn't have really anything to tell you like, oh, this was the story. And her characters are representations of ideas, so they're not really always full circled. But it seems okay because her writing is so beautiful. There are these interspersing chapters about the woman who interrupts their lives that I found very confusing, and I don't know that I could explain. That's why this wouldn't be like a 5-star read for me, because I didn't understand why they were there. Maybe Ali Smith is just too smart for me. But I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed reading it with Kendra, and I will definitely pick up some more Ali Smith. So if you haven't read her, this is a good place to start. The Accidental, I think it's sort of her first big book, and it did win a bunch of awards. And I was shortlisted for the Man Booker, so there you go. Getting back to those confusing books, difficult to talk about. The Lost Daughter Collective by Lindsey Drager. What will I say about this book? This book is part fairy tale, part folklore, part mystery. This is the story of a group of fathers that get together and they discuss their lost daughters. But really it starts with a conversation between one father and his 5-year-old daughter, who starts to tell the story of all of these men and how they deal or how they lost their daughters. And then as the book transitions, you find out that this girl turns into a sort of metaphor folklore story of her own, and her sort of involvement with her father becomes a metaphor for children in the future. So it's really clever, but it's hard to explain. So you're dealing with her as a child, learning sort of these stories about these men who have lost their daughters, as she becomes a story about a father who lost his daughter, kind of, and then becomes a metaphor for future children regarding what happened in the past. It is brilliantly done and beautifully written and extremely difficult to talk about. It is just a weird story, but I really loved it. And I don't know that Lindsey Dragner has actually, and I keep putting an N in her name, Dragner. I don't know if she's written anything else, but I really, really enjoyed this and I want to talk about it, but articulating the ideas has been difficult. But I highly recommend you read it. The next book that I am going to tell you about is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee, which was shortlisted for the National Book Award. I read the paperback version, thank gosh, because the hardback version was impossible to carry around. This is the story of a family. It starts with a young woman named Sunja, who is having a relationship with a man, gets pregnant. She thinks she's going to marry him and have a happy life. Turns out that that's not going to happen. She winds up marrying another Korean man who is a preacher who has tuberculosis and is heading to Japan. So she moves to Japan with him. Her children are born in Japan, and it's the story of her family through time. You go through her and her husband, her sons, and then her sons' families. It is about how Korean Japanese are treated in Japan. It's about where they live, how they come from one life and it changes. It is about family. It is about what constitutes the love of a mother for her children, a father for his children. What constitutes a father? It's that age-old story of just because you helped produce a child, if you're not a father, you're not a father. This book is so enveloping. You will love the story. If you like to get involved in a saga and a family saga, this is a fantastic book for that. I will say that it's not sophisticatedly written. It is definitely an easy read. There's not a lot of lyrical language to it. So the writing was sort of a surprise to me. I expected it to be a little bit more, just a little juicier than it was, but I don't count that against it. I think it's an amazing book. It just is written in a very straightforward or readable style. It is very much about the characters. It's very much about the ideas and the family. And I really, really loved it. I would give this to a lot of people. So I highly recommend you read Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. If you haven't already, if it's on your shelf, get on it. You guys will really like it. Last but not least is a graphic novel I read, and that was Sculptor by McCloud. And this is just fantastic, you guys. It is a chunkster, let me tell you, but this is the story of a young man who was a famous sculptor, had sort of a falling out with someone, and sort of lost his fame. So he makes a deal with death that for 200 days, he can sculpt whatever he wants with his hands out of whatever he wants. He falls in love with a woman. The woman is dealing with her own mental health issues. It's about relationships, knowing that there's an end date, the tragedy that comes with people who you love struggling with stuff like mental health. It's also about art. What constitutes art? How do you get your art out in the world? When you have so many ideas, how do you edit yourself? How do you be that person so your statement is heard and is not lost in too much static? The drawings are just phenomenal, and I don't want to give too much away because there's some amazing art pieces in here, but I just want to show you guys, if you can see that. The drawings really are just fantastic. This is really, really good. So if you haven't picked it up, I highly recommend Sculptor by McCloud. So that is what I read in the month of November. I hope you guys had a great reading month. as always, if you are a return subscriber, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Talk to you below. If you read any of these books, do you want to read any of them? Let's talk about them. If you are new to my channel, thank you for coming along. I hope you like this video. And until next time, happy reading, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.